Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and we are driving through and to the Sugarcreek and Walnut Creek areas of Ohio. And this is one of my favorite areas on the planet. I love this area. Really nice drive coming up to, for what it's worth, from where we're at, kind of in central eastern Kentucky, I guess you might say. It's probably a little under 5 hours if you drive up I-75, go through Cincinnati, go through Columbus, and go that route. Or you can add probably a little over half an hour, 45 minutes to your trip, and go through West Virginia and take a couple different ways. And that's what we decided to do. I was thinking, especially on a 3-day holiday weekend, even in the morning, even if we left early, you never know what traffic's going to be like in Cincinnati. And man, I hate driving through Cincinnati on when it's busy and when it's trafficy. And Cincinnati can especially be pretty rough. So we decided to go through West Virginia, and I think that was a really good idea. We drove actually through. I always put Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in to the GPS, and kind of use that as almost like a halfway point. There's a coffee shop I like there a lot, the Coffee Grinder. They have good coffee. I'm always looking for an excuse to drive through Point Pleasant anyway. So we did that this morning, stopped for some good coffee. Then we drove we drove the rest of the way up here into Ohio, and we're not that far right now from Sugarcreek and Walnut Creek. We're staying in Walnut Creek on this trip. Yeah, so this is just a great area. A couple things real quick before we get into this. I wanted to apologize for the windshield issues. We ran into a small army of bugs on the way up at some point, and we just could not get our windshield cleaned off for the rest of this trip. So I hope you won't let that be too much of a distraction. I tried to keep the camera pointed out at an area where there weren't any spots or anything, but it was hard to do. So I hope you can kind of ignore that and forgive me for it. Yeah, we're just driving along. I mean, just look how pretty this is. I love this. And again, I love driving through like rural West Virginia, as opposed to, again, up on 75 through Cincinnati, Columbus. That route can be, well, just very interstatey. It just seems very interstate. The scenery is not quite what it is going through Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But yeah, so we're probably down to the last 10 miles or so on our trip, and we're staying at the Carlisle Inn in Walnut Creek, and more on that later. But I really like that hotel. In fact, just about every time we stayed in this area, we stayed at the Carlisle Inn in Walnut Creek. We did stay, several years ago, we stayed at the Walhouse Inn, which is maybe a quarter of a mile away from the Carlisle Inn. But the Walhouse Inn had a big sign out front that they had been named one of the top 20 or top 25 hotels in America by TripAdvisor. And we thought, that's pretty darn impressive. We need to check that out. So we stayed there on one of our previous trips, and we liked it. We liked it a lot. It's a clean, up-to-date, modern hotel, and we liked it. One of my wife's cousins came. We had dinner with him and his wife one night. He really liked the hotel too. In fact, he lives in this area, and he liked the fact that the hotel was so up-to-date, so modern, so new. He thought that was really nice for this area, because most of the hotels kind of go with the whole Amish theme. They, there's cows and framed quilt patterns and things like that, displayed, photos of barns and all that. So he really thought that the Walhouse Inn was a big bonus for the area, and he liked it a lot. Again, I liked it a lot too. However, when I'm coming to Amish country, I kind of like the framed quilt patterns and stuff like that up in the hotel hallways. I like the pictures of the barns. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, and I enjoy that. And the Carlisle Inn, it's Yeah, they have that kind of thing. It attracts a bit more of a mature crowd. You know, people aren't there for a crazy rock concert. They're there to have an Amish experience and to see Amish. To go sample some cheese. I kind of like the Carlisle Inn just for that. There was a welcome to Sugarcreek sign back there. I think that's a really cute sign that we just passed. And right now, so we're driving through Sugarcreek right now, and this is a nice area. I'm going to put up another video talking more just about Sugarcreek. But to me, Sugarcreek is the place people talk about when they talk about Amish country. To me, I think of Sugarcreek when I think of Amish. And I know there's other areas. I've mentioned Mesopotamia, Ohio before. Another area that I love. I know there's Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But this to me, this is it. This is it right here. I've mentioned before too, in another video or two, if you've ever watched any of my other stuff, and thank you if you have. We lived in Cleveland for 10 years, and this was a nice area to come to get away from the big city. Oh, right here on the right before McDonald's. Yeah, it's just a tad out of sight there, really. But right on the right there, we're kind of passing it. Yeah, just before McDonald's is Wall House Coffee. And that in Sugarcreek, Ohio, that is probably one of my all-time favorite coffee shops, period. And it's a restaurant. It's not just a coffee shop. They actually sell burritos and wraps. My wife had an incredible and a generous salad there the other day. That is just a really nice restaurant, and it's a one-off. It's a one of one. It's not a chain. It's the only one of its kind, and it's really attractive. It's really pretty. They do a good job. Right here on the left is Amish Country Donuts and Cafe. That's a newer place too, and they have really good coffee too. I stopped there the other day for the first time and was really impressed. A lot of Amish and Mennonites in there, and they were friendly. They make good coffee. They have huge donuts. Yeah, there's an Amish buggy. Yeah, you get a lot of good quality one of one places in this area. I think with the tourists coming through, and I think also with the Amish influence, any business that starts up, they know that they've got to offer something unique and something good. And Wall House, when I first walked into Wall House several years ago, I asked them if it was a chain, because they have a professional logo. They've got printed cups. It didn't look like your standard, barely scratching by a coffee shop. It was just really, really polished. And they told me that it was just it was just its own little place. And I look forward to going there when we're in this area. And the Amish Country Donuts, that used to be a filling station. And they've turned that into what that is now. And actually up here on the right, there's a little street right here. I think if you turn off to the right up ahead, there's a great pizza place called Park Street Pizza that we just discovered. Again, family ran, very slick, very nice, and very popular, and justifiably so. Lots of good food in this area. Not even counting the home cooking Amish kind of stuff. There's just a lot of good places to eat at in this area. And again, just quality. Lots of quality. And we like this area a lot. And we haven't had lunch yet, so we're driving to probably our favorite restaurant in the Walnut Creek area. And along with Wall House Coffee, one of the restaurants we have to eat at every time we come here. It's a place called Rebecca's Bistro. And it's kind of a soup and sandwich and salad kind of place. It's kind of more healthy food. Definitely healthier than a lot of the other stuff offered in this area. But the food is so good, and I always get the Cuban sandwich. They have a Cuban sandwich that's just ridiculous. It is so good. I really like that a lot. Oh, and we're passing the Honey Bee Cafe on the right. I've actually never been there. We just haven't stopped there on any trip. If you read the Guideposts book series, Sugarcreek Amish Mysteries, they're always having lunch at the Honey Bee Cafe, so I've got to go there sometime. It wasn't even open on this particular trip, but I've got to make a point to go in there just because I've read those books, and I should go in there at some point. Back back to Rebecca's Bistro though. It's a really popular restaurant in the area. It's right beside Dare Dutchman though, and Dare Dutchman is kind of the if you're coming to this area, you have to eat at Dare Dutchman. And so it's right beside Dare Dutchman, which takes a little bit of attention, I think, away from it. But both are great restaurants for totally different reasons. But Rebecca's is just really good, and they have a peach tea that I always have to get when I'm there, and it's just a nice place to go and fill up. You feel full, but you don't feel like you're too full. Yeah, and here in a little bit we're going to go into Rebecca's in order. And again, it's right by Dare Dutchman. Dare Dutchman is, kind of the Amish-themed comfort food place that everybody goes to. And it's just as good as you would imagine. It's great. And we go there quite a bit too. But Rebecca's Bistro is our favorite place in this area. You'll see, and I think I've got it in this video in a little bit, Dare Dutchman, especially on a holiday weekend, you're going to have a big line waiting to get into Dare Dutchman. They do have like a little side cafe, like a bakery kind of attached to it that's close to the hotel. And you can go in. I know I went in and got just a cup of coffee and one of the apple pies that are so popular in this area. I got one of those one morning just because I was craving one. And then we usually get, some jams and peanut butter kind of stuff. They have like a honey peanut butter spread that's real big at Dare Dutchman. And we usually get a small jar of that for some of our friends back home. And that stuff is really good. But Dare Dutchman has like a little, it's kind of a gift shop / bakery right beside it. You can also do takeout orders, which is good. Right here on the right, that's David Warther's museum. David Warther, and I'm sure if I've got the videos up, I've mentioned him before. He carves out of ivory scale ships, and he is incredible. I mean, it's freakish how good he is. And the time we stopped and visited him, we got there right in the morning when they opened, and he came and opened the place up and gave my wife and I and another couple about a 2-hour tour. And I was just so blown away. I've mentioned before, I paint toy soldiers. I'm a figure painter. I love detail. I love crazy, obsessed detail with stuff. And I paint toy soldiers. They're already pre-made. Somebody else sculpts them, then I paint them. It's relaxing. Frankly, I don't think it takes a whole lot of talent to make one look pretty good. But sculpting scale ships is just crazy. I mean, you've got to be an obsessed perfectionist to do those things right. And he talked about, using blueprints and getting a hold of blueprints of ships to make his scale models. And I think that's just crazy. And then, of course, his grandfather carved trains. And there's a museum devoted to his grandfather and his trains in Dover, not too far from here. And that's another great museum. I guess that's the thing, when you go to Sugarcreek and Dover in these areas, not only do you get that unique Amish experience and you get to see stuff like that, there's just some really cool museums. There's great restaurants. And it's rural. You're out in the country. And I like that. I like that a lot. There's a whole lot of quality in a small area, that's not, the traffic's not crazy like you might have in a Cleveland or a Columbus or a Louisville. So this is just a nice area to go to. I mentioned too, my wife's family was in this area quite a bit. So, again, when we lived in Cleveland, we would come to this area just to relax. And it was always a treat. And we live in Lexington now, which is not nearly on the scale of a Cleveland. They call it a nice big little town, but it's still nice to come somewhere like Sugarcreek and Walnut Creek to hang out. Right here on the right, this is a big old grocery store that we always stop at, and it's a little crowded today, I think, again because of the 3-day weekend. But it reminds me a little bit of Jungle Jim's in Cincinnati. And that's not a fair comparison because Jungle Jim's is so over the top. That place is not quite as over the top as Jungle Jim's, but it's a very unique grocery store. Locals go there for their groceries, and tourists go there because they have, again, the kind of jellies and jams you want to get from this area. And it's a good one-stop place to pick up a lot of that kind of stuff. They have some aprons and cooking stuff. It's a good place to get gifts for your friends back home, and it's a bit of an experience going there. They have the cheeses and the dairy stuff that you want too, so that's a really neat place to stop, and I like it a lot. Up here on the left, there's a little cafe right there on the left, and it's I don't know if it's ran by a church, but it's a very Christian themed kind of place. They have good food, it's again good quality stuff, and it's kind of a hangout for the kids too, but again it's sort of church based. And it was open one night when we were in town and no place else was open for dinner, so we stopped there. Up here on the right, and I think it's hidden by the trees and we're not going to be able to see it, is the Wall House Inn. Yeah, it's going to be just right out of sight. I mentioned that earlier. That's the Wall House Inn is there on the left. And again, I think I put some video of it later on. We asked them while we were there if they were associated with the Wall House Coffee Shop. And I think the owners are friends, but they're not actually connected. And I think when they started that hotel, they asked Wall House Coffee if they could use the name Wall House, and Wall House Coffee was okay with it. So there's the Wall House Inn, and there's also the Wall House Coffee Shop. And we're about to turn right. Right here on the left, yeah, there's a little candy shop there. They sell all sorts of chocolate and fudge stuff. We usually stop and get fudge for our friends before we come home. On the left here, right there on the left, that is the Carlisle Inn. That's where we'll be staying. On the right are some really nice gift shops. On the left is Der Dutchman. You might be seeing, well, yeah, that's Der Dutchman on the left. And we're about to go into Rebecca's Bistro. So yeah, here's Rebecca's Bistro. And our waitress was Wilma, and she is so sweet. We've had her before, and she really took good care of us. We ordered a dessert, and she said it was good hot and cold. I wanted mine hot. My wife wanted hers cold. She cut it in half and brought mine out hot and brought my wife's out cold. But she's really sweet, and I left the camera running while we ordered. And I'm gonna quit talking for a little bit just so you can hear us order.
Hello.
Howdy.
Good.
How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. Some straws.
Sure.
So did you have a chance to look at the menu while you're waiting already?
I think we're good to go.
Okay.
I'm going to do the strawberry spinach salad.
Anything to drink for you?
Just the water.
All right. And then for you, sir.
Definitely the tea.
Ginger peach tea? Okay.
And I was looking at the Cuban sandwich and the tomato soup. Do you have a soup and sandwich deal or anything?
Yeah, that can be a side.
No, let's do that. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and how pleasant was Wilma? She was just really sweet. We liked her a lot. Right there on the right, that's the Wall House Inn, just so you know. And then there's that cafe I mentioned earlier that we like. It's kind of a little teen hangout Christian kind of place. Just a couple nice places. Also wanted to mention, in front of the Wall House, there's usually a little Amish guy who does buggy rides. I think it might be $5 a person, and it's done through the Carlisle Inn. It's actually done through the Carlisle Inn. You buy a ticket at the inn, and then you go out and you do a buggy ride with him, and that's pretty cool. We've done that before. We didn't do it on this trip though, but it's definitely worth the few bucks you pay for it. Yeah, and then also down through here is a peach place. It's like an orchard. I think it's called Hillcrest Orchard. And they have the best peaches ever. And we just really thought highly of that place, and I wanted to mention them. Yeah, we're coming up on this nice covered bridge here. That's the Peace Bridge, and I wanted to read just give you a brief description of what it says on the little historic marker beside it. An unbarred log cabin door could mean vulnerability, but for one of the earliest pioneering families of the Ohio country, the peace-loving Amish Jacob Mast family of Walnut Creek, 1812, it could mean surprises. The Masts had arrived only 3 years after the arrival of the first white settler in what would become eastern Holmes County, the Amishman Jonas Stutzman, in 1809. Only 1 mile west of here and across a gently flowing stream is the Jacob Mast cabin site. Occasionally, late on a frosty winter night, 2 to 4 Native Americans returning home from their night's hunt, instead of passing by, would try the door and then silently slip in to sleep in front of the fireplace. In the morning, before venturing down from the sleeping loft of their cabin, the Masts cautiously peered down and through the loft hole. Yes, as sometimes occurred, there they were, the sleeping frontier Indians lying on the floor in front of the fireplace. Miss Mast would carefully descend through the loft hole to prepare breakfast, for this provided the Christian opportunity to provide a brotherly breakfast to their drop-in guests. After the peaceful fellowship with the Masts, the Indians proceeded farther up the hollow to their encampment. Does the raised 2 fingers suggest that they had harvested 2 deer during the night? This story speaks well for peaceful Christian relationships between frontier Native Americans and the Amish. Instead of forcing the Native Americans off their land or shooting them, the Amish believed in sharing Christian hospitality with them. Originating in 1525 during the Reformation era, neither Catholic nor Protestant, but a third way, the peaceful Anabaptists, including modern-day Amish and Mennonites, believe following Jesus means Christians never kill their fellow man. May we cross the bridge of peace, kindness, and goodwill to all people. This history reflects the heritage of Holmes County, which was to become home to the largest Amish settlement in the world. We welcome you to enjoy this heritage of peace in the Amish country. Anyway, I think that's really nice. So they've got this nice little bridge here, and they've got that marker giving that information, and I think that's really neat. I think that's something really nice for this area. And we're going back down the road a little bit after stopping at the Peace Bridge. Oh, and I wanted to mention there's right by Rebecca's Bistro, there's a really nice antique mall, antique shop kind of place, and we always go there, and I always find some great little finds. I found little Cracker Jack toys, and I found a couple of old clocks. Always get a good deal there too. We're driving around here. Of course, my wife and I are picking out that's a nice house. That's a nice house. We're picking out possible future homes. Yeah, and I realized I hadn't mentioned I don't think I mentioned a book yet on this video, and I did. I was able to hunt down one book that was specifically about Walnut Creek, Ohio. There's not a whole lot of. Well, actually, I just found one book, a book on Walnut Creek, specifically on Walnut Creek, Ohio. And I picked it up the other day. I actually found it online. It's called 99 Rats on a String, Legends, Facts, and Folklore of Walnut Creek, Ohio. The author actually doesn't put his name right where you'd expect. Yeah, obviously the author is a bit humble and did not require their name printed on the side or anything like that. I think it's Larry Westfall. My copy is signed. Yeah, Larry Westfall. And this is a neat little book. It's about 125 pages. And it includes just some stories. It talks about some of the characters that have come through Walnut Creek. And it even gives a bit of information on the Amish guy who came around and sort of founded the area and kind of made it the big deal that it is now. And he came through and was a hard-working religious Amish man. He always wore white, which obviously made him stand out. yeah, and he kind of set up shop, and others kind of followed him there. And by the way, we're looking at Der Dutchman, and look at the line to get in. Again, this was a busy day, and they had a bit of a line going out. Even to get into the little bakery on the side here, there was a bit of a line going up right past the Carlisle Inn there on the right. We had a nice room, actually up on the 3rd floor. You can see our little balcony up there. It's a little place we like a lot. But yeah, 99 Rats on a String. It just gives some stories, mostly older stories, early 1900s, on up through about the 1950s, going up into today a little bit. One story that kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies was about Rebecca's Bistro, which I mentioned earlier that I love. The building that it's in now was actually moved from another location, and it looks like a murder occurred there at one point. The poor victim's skeleton had a bit of a life of its own after that. Also, during the Depression, there were teams in the area that competed to see who could catch the most rats, and there is a picture of some proud hunters on the cover of this book. Oh, and I liked a section on the doctors in the area, and they also talked about some local tramps that came through the area and some interesting characters. But this was a cute little book, and I enjoyed it a lot. Oh yeah, here, just for what it's worth, kind of ending the video with just some pans and some videos I took around the Carlisle Inn, the hotel. Again, we're on the 3rd floor. We're looking out of the balcony. That's the view. That's the view overlooking this side of the hotel. And actually, just right past those trees right there, it's pretty much blocked out by those trees, is the other inn that I mentioned, the Wall House Inn, which is another interesting hotel in the area that we liked a lot. But we just like the Carlisle here because it's got this sort of thing. This is me walking down the hall of, again, our room on the 3rd floor, and this is just the hall, and yeah, nothing too bright and fancy, but classy, nice. And I like this quilt stuff. I'm not a huge quilt person, but I just think it's very appropriate there, and I thought it looked nice. There was a little workout room over here. This was in the morning. This was the view from our balcony one morning, and I just kind of like that very hazy, foggy look. Kind of reminded me of Eastern Tennessee. When you go down there in the mornings, it just looks so real. Of course, except for those telephone lines, but yeah, they're not that big of a distraction. On the other side of the inn, you get a really nice country view too. And we've stayed on the other side of the inn too before, and that's nice. We've stayed on the 1st floor, and we've stayed on the 3rd floor. One year we stayed on the 1st floor and just had basically the same view, just lower to the ground, and that was nice. Little fellas riding their bikes. And again, yeah, they got some little black box on that, and they're doing pretty good. They're actually moving pretty fast. There's the sign out front of the Carlisle Inn, some nice flowers. Yeah, they're moving along. And just to the left there, if you could peek over a little bit more, is the Der Dutchman, and there's the little bakery. I went over there and got coffee a couple times. Real nice staircase there in the hotel, and that's the little breakfast area. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Here's a little sitting area. This is really pretty too. I love the windows. It's nice and open. Really nice place to sit and have breakfast. I've had lots of breakfasts in this area. They have kind of a continental breakfast. If you stay at your basic hotels a lot, they do have some hot food, which is nice. And this is from the back porch area. So you got the little parking lot there, and then just over it, you got those great hills and trees and just green. And that's just a nice view. And they've got a little walk. Even if you don't stay on this part of the hotel, there's a little area you can walk out into, like a little balcony, and just look around. And that's what I did this particular morning. and Der Dutchman would be to our right. And it's a 2-minute walk from the hotel, if that. Yeah, there's the parking lot for the Der Dutchman. There's Der Dutchman. And just back out on our front porch. A little sunnier. Daylight, obviously. It's not quite the morning. Just, oh yeah, there's a buggy going by. And that guy, I don't believe he's Amish. Yeah, he's got a little 2-wheel cart there. And his horse. This particular weekend we were there was really hot, and I don't think the Amish were out in full force. Yeah, they were out a bit though. There have been times I've sat on a porch here at the Carlisle Inn and just really enjoyed, watching the buggies go by. There's a few more riding their bikes up the hill. Again, they're going, they're moving. But this is really pleasant. It's a nice balcony. Get a cup of coffee or a nice drink, and just sit on the balcony and just see what's going on. It's the life. Yeah, the breakfasts here are good. They're not spectacular. It's not a B&B kind of setup, but they do have very, very decent food. I think we had sausage and eggs the couple mornings we were here for breakfast this last trip. And of course it wasn't quite as continental as usual with everything going on. Yeah, those guys are they're going uphill both ways there, and they are moving, so I think they've got some little motor thing on their bike there.
No, we're taking her $50